Hello, folks. Welcome to Manly Pinterest Tip Show. I'm Jeff Sieh, and you're not. And before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know my super exclusive training on Pinterest and visual marketing is getting ready to close. I only have room for about 3 more people. If you would like to boost your Pinterest and visual marketing, go over to manlypinteresttips.com/training. That's manlypinteresttips.com/training to find out more. But I want to talk today. We're going to be talking all about creating great presentations. And I have some incredible presenters here as my guests today. And if you've never heard of these ladies, let me tell you, we've got Peg Fitzpatrick and Rebekah Radice. And let me give you the lowdown on these two ladies. Peg is the co-author of The Art of Social Media, Power Tips for Power Users with Guy Kawasaki. She's been seen on Time, Huffington Post, NPR's Tech Nation, and she also runs social media campaigns for some of the top companies around. She spearheaded successful social media campaigns for Motorola, Audi, Google, Virgin, and more. And she's probably taught me more about Pinterest than anybody else. And equally awesome is Rebekah Radice, and she's an award-winning writer, social media strategist, and global brand ambassador for Post Planner. She's the author of How to Use Social Media to Virtually Crush the Competition and recently named a top 10 social media blog by Social Media Examiner for the 2nd year in a row, as well as one of the top 10 most shared content marketers. And these two are some of the top most social media pros out there and really know how to rock a presentation. Thanks, Peg and Rebekah, for being here today.
Woo!
There you go.
Why can't you Rebekah? Well, we're done for the day. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We're out.
That's all you need. All right. Well,
you can intro us on absolutely everything.
Well, you guys deserve it all. So
because that's how to rock an intro right there.
There you go. Well, you know,
that's how our family introduces us when we come to the dinner table.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, not for me.
With the spotlight. Yeah.
Right. And soft glowing filter. I wanted to have you guys on because I saw your presentation at Social Media Marketing World, and you guys killed it. And I know a lot of people want to know, how can I do presentations? Now, they may not be, public speakers and speak as much as you guys do, but everybody at some point in their life needs to make a presentation to people. And so you guys know how to do that. And I know you guys have some tips and tricks on, presentation, what to do, how to compose yourself in front of an audience. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. But first of all, I want to ask each of you, what do you think makes a good presentation? And Peg, I will start with you.
Well, first I have to say, Jeff, your presentation at Social Media Marketing World was definitely the funniest. You were so funny and you shared so much value, but you were hysterical. So I'm aspiring to add some more jokes.
Thank you.
So Jeff will have to add some of his tips in too, people, because he was amazing. So, okay. So for I was a theater person, as I know you were, Jeff. Did you do theater at all, Rebekah?
No.
Okay, well, I'm a theater girl, so I've pretty much been on stages. So it's like that part of it isn't too scary for me, but it is hard to share your own ideas. It's a lot different having a script and reading someone else's words and trying to be funny, because then you're practicing the same things and you work on it. But it's kind of the same when you're speaking for people. You're just sharing your expertise or whatever your topic is. So, I have to say, the way that I learned, one of the best things that helped me was I traveled with Guy with Motorola, and we went all over South America, and he did so many presentations. So I got to really see how he does it. So I have to say, it's like a master class in how to present. He is so funny when he talks. If a joke really works, he keeps it in. If it doesn't work too well, he doesn't do it again. Like, he is the master at adding humor and providing value. So I learned a lot from how he does it. And I learned how, I help him do a slide presentation. So I've had a really behind the scenes, sneak peek with one of probably one of the best, most booked speakers in our country right now. He really is global. So the things I learned from him were, number one, he practiced for a really long time before he wasn't good when he started. He said he wasn't good when he started. He learned from watching Steve at Apple being the best launch guy ever. And I think, for Guy, he's an introvert. I'm an extrovert, but it's work. So the first thing is, don't think it's going to be easy. Cut yourself some slack. It does take time to learn it. That's what I'll say for my first tip. You're not going to go up and be awesome without some work. as everything in life. Sorry, people, but there is work behind it.
Right. So what about Rebekah? What do you?
You actually have to practice? Come on.
So what do you think makes a good presentation, Rebekah? What do you think? What when you see one, what do you go, oh, that one worked?
Yeah, I think there's so many factors within that, but to me, it's a great story. So really framing your story in a way that is interesting, is, in your case, Jeff, is funny, is inspiring. It just depends on what content you're bringing. But you need to understand who your audience is and that journey you're taking them on through your presentation. So thinking through from beginning to end, what is the story you want to tell, and how are you going to get that point across in a way that gets them from where they are to an aha moment as quickly as possible. Those are the best presentations to me, where immediately, and Brené Brown always comes to mind because she's just so phenomenal at the storytelling and getting you to that aha moment where I instantly have connected with her to understand where she's coming from, what she's dealing with, and saying to myself, that's me too. And that's what we want. As presenters, we want our audience to instantly say, oh yeah, totally get it, totally feel ya, totally hear ya on that, and make that connection. And I think we have the ability to do that by being a really great storyteller. And I'll share with you, Peg, you know all of this, so you're gonna be like, blah, blah, boring.
Stop it. I don't know anything.
I'm teasing.
Keep going.
I'm teasing. So you guys are drama geeks. I am not. I actually sang my whole life growing up, played piano, sang in a small group, toured all over the country. And that was, I think was a huge help for me in being on a stage, being in front of people, knowing how to conduct yourself in front of people. And then I did morning radio for 10 years, in a major city, and top 10, radio, morning show, which kept me out there in front of people all the time. And both of those had a huge impact and I'm an extrovert, obviously. And, so it's a little bit easier in that sense. But come on, let's be honest. It's never that comfortable to bare your soul in front of people. Yeah. So I actually went out and I hired a speaking coach and she's a drama, Juilliard trained, won all kinds of awards, and just love her to death. But she helped me pull stories out of me because I wasn't very good. As a matter of fact, I kind of sucked at telling stories. And so it doesn't mean that you have to go out there and hire a coach like I did, but it does mean you need to sit down and you need to really think about what is the story that you can share with your audience and how can you impart that? And I think so many times we talk about what we've been through, and it's just like, yeah, same old story to me, but to somebody else, there's so many learning moments within your story. And so it's just understanding how you can start to tell those in a way that makes a difference or an impact in the lives of your audience.
Yeah.
And that is,
go ahead. You're my guest.
I was going to say that's one of the things that I know Jeff works a lot on his stories too. And for Rebekah and I both, we write about social media all the time, and we're kind of like, oh, we have to tell a personal story. It's not the most comfortable thing. And even Brené Brown is a great example. She studies vulnerability, and we saw her speak in Boston at the Inbound conference, Rebekah and I did. And she's amazing. And, she's not a natural public speaker. She's a scientific researcher. So it's not the most comfortable thing for her to go up. And she always breaks it down with humor too. She makes jokes in her TED Talks. When she did her TED Talk, which is in the top 10 of most watched TED Talks of all, she said they told her, oh, probably nobody will even see this. It'll just be, so she told herself, hardly anybody's even going to see this. And then she's like, now people come up to me at Home Depot and they're like, I saw you on YouTube. So, it's interesting because, obviously you can't anticipate going viral on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you do have to do each presentation and tell each story. Like, you don't know how many people are going to see it, which does add a little bit of scary factor in it. For me, for social media conferences, like, we know every single person in the audience is like,
Right.
Yeah.
like, they're all like, are they writing good things? Are they writing bad things? You have to kind of tune that out and not worry about it. I did a speech one time where on the wall behind me, they did a tweet wall that like tweeted, it was like showing the stuff that people were writing. And that was like kind of scary because I was thinking, what if someone hates me? And they're like, God, I hate her. And they're like tweeting it.
Going on the back.
People do that. Yeah, seriously, like people do that. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
But so it does add a layer. Today, speaking publicly, it does add a layer of like, an extra fear factor. So some things you have to like turn off in your head. That was going to be my point. Like, you have to turn off in your head. Like, somebody could be saying something negative. You have to just like go in the moment, really be in the moment. Otherwise you'll lose focus. So you have to like turn off the negative thoughts that could come in your head.
That's such an important point. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, I was going to say one of the things I read a book before to get ready for Social Media Marketing World called "Do You Talk Funny" by David Nihill, and it's really good because one of the things he said is to nail the first 30 seconds. And so I practice my first 30 seconds, and I think that a lot of speakers that I see don't understand that you have that much time to endear yourself to the audience. Yeah. And so my style is always to be like self-depreciation. And, when I get up, I say, a lot of you think that I'm a fashion designer or a fitness guru. And of course, I look totally nothing like that. And so I think that self-depreciation humor, this guy is okay. He doesn't take himself too seriously kind of thing. And so hitting that first 30 seconds, in that book, that really, really helped. And then Liv Combs talked about, she went and saw Michael Port, and he's another one who really focuses on story. And like you said, stories make you nervous because you're kind of revealing some of yourself. I was really didn't know if I should tell that peace story or not that I did for mine, but it worked out. And, and people like that vulnerability. So, but how do you guys prepare? Peg, you mentioned that that guy practiced a lot, and he watched people and he kind of refines his as he goes. So how do you guys prepare for an upcoming presentation? I mean, usually, a couple months in advance. Do you start right then and there, or do you wait to the last minute? Rebekah, how do you prepare for your presentation?
You kind of want the whole process? Is that what you're...
Yeah, kind of like when you, somebody booked you for a speaking engagement, and you know the topic, what do you start doing?
First, we make our hair and nail appointments.
Me too. That's amazing.
Little beard.
Yeah, the beard dry bar. So.
Yeah, there you go. So for me, it's very similar to writing a blog post or writing an ebook or a book. I'm going to start with brainstorming my topic, and I'm going to think about everything that I just talked about, which is, what is the point I'm trying to get across? What is the journey I'm trying to take that audience on? What do I want to leave them with? So what do I need them to know by the time we're done? And then I'll start fleshing that out. And so for me, I do everything in Google. So it's starting in a Google Doc and just working through my top points. So what are the top maybe 20 points, depends on how long the presentation is. But what are those top 20, and I say top 20 points but that could be, way too many dependent on how much time you have. But understanding exactly what you're trying to get across and then fleshing those out. Into, sub bullets. And then once I've done that, now the hard part really comes. So where it's now going out and doing, any research that I need to do, really understanding what are those critical pieces that people are going to be looking for within my presentation? And then how am I going to share that in a way that just immediately makes sense to them? Peg and I think we all do have a very similar style in taking the difficult or incomprehensible and taking it down into a very manageable, understandable level. So for me, it's starting up here at the 100,000 foot level, and then working it down, to 50,000 feet, to 10,000 feet, down to the ground level of, okay, how does this actually make sense for me in my day-to-day business? How am I going to be able to walk out of here and implement what you're talking about? So for me, it's many different iterations of that outline where I'll start from that high level and then chunk it down. And then I have a pretty big come to Jesus with myself of, okay, now that we got all this in here, what do we need to edit and get rid of? And, that hard conversation of, but I love that. And that's really good content. But being ruthless in your editing and getting rid of, and I know, Jeff, you talked a little bit about this too, just getting rid of absolutely everything that just bloats your presentation and doesn't roll up into that end goal, that end takeaway that you want your audience to walk away with. So that's kind of my initial process. And then there's a whole different process, in getting, did we lose Peg?
Yeah, sure. Camera froze. She's going to come back in.
Yeah, in getting ready, to actually present. So there's a lot of different steps, but I'll let Peg talk about your process.
Well, I want to ask you a follow-up question, Rebekah. So when do you say, okay, it's done, I'm ready? Are you working up to all the way to the end towards okay, no. Tomorrow is my presentation?
I'll typically have everything done a month out, and I'm still tweaking a good 2 weeks out. But when I say tweaking, it's pretty minor. It's not typically anything that is going to be a big deal. It's just that I've done multiple dry runs through my presentation, and I talk everything out loud. So I'll talk it just like I'm going to give it. And there will be spots where I'm like, dang it. And I did this on the one at Social Media Marketing World. I just kept getting hung up in one spot. I couldn't make that seamless transition. And so I just, cut it, chuck it.
Yep.
But that's, I think, an important piece that you mentioned is give yourself enough time and space to be totally comfortable with your content.
Gotcha. So Peg, how do you prepare and get ready for your presentations?
Well, I do start with my hair and nail appointments.
The important things.
Yeah.
Because then I feel better when I get there and I know I look good. Because guys just have life so much easier with live video and presentations. There's so many more things to figure out when you're a girl. So I try to get all those details out of the way early so I don't have to worry about it, because otherwise I would be stressed. So I do a lot of the same things that Rebekah does. One of the things that I'm really mindful of is when you give a presentation, we'll use Social Media Marketing World as an example. They give you a title and then they write a little description, and then they want you to stick with that. And I find sometimes I can go off track when I'm creating my presentation and I start going off on with other ideas. I try to go back all the time and make sure that I'm 100% on that description, because I really want people to feel like the session that they came to is what they're getting and they're learning what they signed up for. And I feel like the conferences really appreciate that too. I don't know if that matters as much to people going to the session or not. I'm not actually positive, but I just feel like as an attendee, when I go to conferences, I like to, if somebody says they're teaching you about something, I like it to be about that. So I try to be really mindful of that. It can be easy to lose sight of it, especially for a conference if you're signing up for it months in advance, and then some people wait till the last minute to do their stuff, and then they're not really sticking on topic. That's not me. I'm like, I do everything early like Rebekah does. And then I, make sure I keep going back to my original. It's kind of like my little thesis, right? It's what I want to cover. So I do that. I don't over practice. I did like over practice one time, and then it made me feel nervous, like I'm going to leave something out. So I let my slides guide me through my presentation, through my stories, and help the images and the little bit of text that I put on them help lead me through. So what's on your slides can help you with your presentation. You never want to be, obviously we all know you shouldn't be reading off of your slides, putting 100, bullet points for things, because some people know this that are in this group, you guys all know, but when I was at Social Media Marketing World doing my first one, it was a workshop and it was 90 minutes. So that's a really long time. If I had focused on my slides, that I was going to go off my slides, I would have been in big trouble because my slides didn't work at all. And I had to do the whole speech, but the whole workshop without them. And I was actually fine because I knew my topic. So knowing all the things that I'm going to talk about are more important to me than me personally than actually knowing the exact things I'm going to say. I know my overall ideas and my slides guide me through the bigger points. So I was able to kind of just glance at a slide that nobody else could see and go through it all. And here's the thing, nobody knew what I was supposed to say. I stayed on my topic. I taught everybody. It doesn't have to be a situation where, oh my God, I left something out. If you get too focused on the individual words, I feel like that would make me feel like I did forget something. Like once you're live, like Rebekah and Jeff are saying, like we prepare a lot for it, but once you're live, don't worry if you leave something out, just add it in.
Right.
Provide all the things, but don't get too hung up on it. I saw actually inbound again, Martha Stewart, who I love Martha Stewart so much, but she was not a good professional speaker. She's not a professional speaker. She's amazing at a million other things, but her professional speaking, she got totally panned on Twitter live because she was reading off of her cards and she would get worried if she didn't say something. And part of the way I learn at conferences is I love to go see how other people do things.
Yeah.
A lot of speakers don't go check other people out. I love to learn from other people. I feel like my colleagues are my biggest resource. So I like to just, learn from other people. So if I had not seen her kind of flutter and, she still did great and she still provided value. But when she got into her areas of expertise, like talking about cooking or her line of products at Macy's, she was totally in her zone. And I feel like that's kind of like, Elisa I think she was sitting with me. She was definitely there at that one too. She was not a good keynote, unfortunately. But that's the kind of thing, she moved on, nobody cares really in the real world. But for me, I kind of learned, okay, that's a great example of why you should never, ever read off of things. Yeah. I did know that before, obviously, but that was a live example of it was so bad.
Yeah.
So bad. And she was like, if she didn't have the next card, she wouldn't know what to say next. And so I kind of like to get the flow down, the order down, and then I let the slides guide me.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do. Yeah, that's kind of what I do as well, as they're kind of a placeholder. And the key is to practice. I think is to practice enough so you feel comfortable. Because I did the same thing. You had some tech problems and you handled it fine because you knew your content. And so don't just
thank God, right?
Yeah, just don't put slides up and expect that's going to do it. You have to practice still. For me, I had practiced with Keynote. You can see what your slide is now and what's coming up. And I had practiced that way. Well, for some reason, when there was a hiccup in my presentation, that upcoming slide was gone. And a lot of my slides my punchlines rely on my next slide coming up right at the right time. And so I'm like, oh crap, am I going to stop and try to fix this or just go on? And I just went on. And so you have to be comfortable enough that what's, for sure get your opening down and memorize that. And then use your, the slides to guide you through your topics. And there's some good questions I wanted to run that people were asking. Liftcoms ask, how many dry runs do you do? And it sounds like, Rebekah, you do quite a few. And Peg, you just kind of get it until you feel comfortable. Is that correct?
Well, I work on mine a lot. I make a lot of my custom graphics in Canva, so my presentations sometimes take me way too long to make, and sometimes I just use the themes that you can customize a little bit. So part of my learning my speech is that actual process of creating it, because I'm thinking a lot about the order and all those kinds of things. So I sort of consider that to be part of the process too. Like it really is like A to Z, like idea to when you're on the stage. So all of those parts are us learning our material and figuring out which order they go. So as far as like dry runs go, I don't know. I mean, I don't do a huge amount because, as I said, one time I did too many, and then I was like, it made me feel like I was going to forget something. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to stress myself out. I mean, I have been in plays. I did a play one time and I was like the main character and I was in every scene but one. And it was like hundreds of pages of dialogue to remember. I don't want it to be like that. You know, I want it to be, because when you're the speaker and you're having fun, people have fun too. That like is something to think about. Like if you were stressed and like worried about missing one little line, it might make your whole presentation not as good, you know, because of that stress. Yeah. So, I think there's different kinds of speakers too. Like we're kind of tactical, educator kind of speakers. And then there's keynote speakers who are like, sometimes have no slides at all that just go up and do, it's more of like a performance thing. So there's different levels. I think everything I've done so far, I've had like a presentation with it. So I use it as a guideline, maybe a crutch. I don't know. I did it without one, so I guess I did okay. But I wasn't ready to do that. I still did it, but I don't know. They're all hard questions. Like how many dry runs? It's a good question to ask, but I guess it's till you feel like you know your material. That's like, it's a personal number. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that's the most important. I think that's it. Yeah. My response was, so like you, Jeff, it's all about the first 5 minutes for me, in just capturing their attention, letting them know exactly what they're going to get, captivating your audience. So for me, that's what I focus on when I first start going through it. I will go through that 20, 30, 40 times. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I feel comfortable and confident. Because I don't care how many times you step on that stage, there's always that nervous jitter, you know, right out of the gate. And so you have to prepare yourself to overcome that. And you do that by being completely comfortable with your first couple of minutes. For me, once I get past those first couple of minutes, if it's been smooth sailing, I'm good to go. And if you've captured your audience's attention in those first couple of minutes, it's going to be so much easier, you know, to get every other point across because, you know, they're actually paying attention. So yeah, I think it does. It comes down to your comfort level in, are you new to speaking? It's probably take a lot more than somebody that is a seasoned presenter, and it's knowing your topic. So another example too is, are you giving the same presentation over and over and over just to maybe a different group, or are you diving into a whole new area for yourself, something you know but haven't necessarily spoken about in front of a crowd? So depending on that dynamic, it could take you a little bit longer. For example, I did a presentation to a group of business professionals in Arizona. And it was something I do every day, inbound marketing, content marketing, but it was a brand new presentation, all new content that I had just put together. So I spent a lot more time talking that one through. I had a lot of stories, a lot of personal stories that related to it. So it's really going to depend on your content, the length of your content, and how comfortable you are in explaining that to people. It's kind of, you know, what's the 10,000 rule? Once you put in your 10,000 hours, you're an expert.
That's a lot of speeches.
Yeah. But it's similar.
You have to do 10,000 before you're an expert.
That's
We're like babies.
Right.
It's the same in the presenting world that, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, the more you will know yourself and how long it's going to take you to work through every single presentation and get to that comfort level. But don't ever expect to be totally 100% comfortable.
Oh, I'm always nervous every time I speak. And even in theater, and I know Peggy, you're the same way. I still feel nervous every time. I mean, it never goes away. It's taking that nervous energy and channeling it into, I'm going to be performing, or I'm going to be on stage now, and using that energy instead of freaking out and throwing up in the bathroom. So here's another question.
Wait, before you go on, to tie into what you just said, I just recently saw a thing where they were talking about being nervous as an actor, right. And somebody asked Henry Fonda, like, when did he stop being nervous? And he said never. Right. He threw up before every single performance on Broadway.
Wow.
No, and he was like, yeah.
Wow.
All right, we need to block someone in the comments here.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. You got it.
You can do that.
So,
okay.
I did, I think. So, yeah, I think you never get over that. And it's part of the little excitement of doing something live, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Well, and
absolutely.
Mitch Jackson asked a good question. He says, how much time do you spend researching and understanding who will be in your audience, and then maybe adjusting your content presentation to what you believe they want to hear? And I actually did this on mine because mine was too data heavy, and mine was the last session right before the keynote on the last day of the conference. And I knew people's minds were swimming with information, and that it was going to be, they were going to tune out really easy. And so I knew that I had to wake them up. So I changed it and added a couple more stories. So I think being able to do that on the fly comes from what Peg and Rebekah have said, is practicing and knowing your content, but also being, okay, I know they're going to be tired, or I know they're coming back for lunch, and thinking of those kind of things in the scenarios in the room. Even if it's a bigger room, you're going to have to be more animated on stage than you are if you're going to be in a smaller room, because you've got to have that energy go all the way to the back of the room. And that just, I think, comes from practice. What about you guys? What do you think?
Yeah.
It's a good question. Yeah, you do need to know your audience for sure, because every conference is different and every room size is different. So it is different. And it's good to go into your rooms ahead of time to check them out. So, are you up on a stage? Is there a podium? Isn't there a podium? Can you walk around a little bit? Like, just get an idea of what you're going to do. My first social media marketing world, I couldn't get away from the podium very well because of the way the setup was. And then I kind of regretted it later. Like, I was like, oh, I should have thought about that more and walked around a little bit more. So if you can go into your room and check out the space, I find that to be helpful. Do you guys do that?
Oh, yeah. That's a really good point, is being comfortable in your space, because you're right. If you're just running into the room and you haven't had any time to acclimate yourself and get comfortable with the tech, because every clicker is different. Every mic is different. How you're going to be mic'd is different. If you're setting up and bringing your own, laptop, for example, it's not set up for you. There's just so many layers within that if you get there early, you get yourself comfortable with everything going on, is a huge de-stressor.
Right. Well, Craig asked a great question. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, going on what Rebekah said, you have to prepare really like what you're going to wear and everything too, because if you where's your mic going to go? Another problem that guys don't necessarily have, but as women, you need to wear the mic. I get stuff. I make sure I have pockets, because otherwise sometimes it has to go up your dress, down your dress, and you have to do that a lot of times in front of the whole audience. So like some guys, it can make you nervous. It can make you feel uncomfortable. It's just, dudes just go up, they always have pockets, right? Unless you're wearing sweatpants, which I doubt. So I do think about that. What you're wearing, will it accommodate everything that you need to do? What is it going to, it's something else to think about. There's a lot of things to think about.
Well, and as a woman, yes, that is so important, because if you go into it wearing something that you can't freely move around in, that you're not comfortable with, that, to Elise's point, are you wearing a dress or a skirt, and is the audience below you? Yikes.
That would be Amy Schumer at Inbound. Yeah. She was like, see up my skirt, because she's Amy Schumer. Right. She was like, take pictures now, and then don't take any more for the rest of of the show. She's like, pictures now. Okay, everybody put your phone away.
But not very many people are that comfortable like Amy to just pull up your whole skirt and be like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, she did pull her skirt up.
A lot of people probably wouldn't do that. So, well, Craig has got a quick question, and I know, Peg, you did this for your workshop, but he says, how do you decide when to bring the audience into the conversation versus presenting in a monologue fashion? Which I thought was a good question.
That is a good question. I usually pull the audience in when I feel like I've been talking a long time and I feel like they might be bored. Like, you know how you get into those big chunks of time? I almost always do it like right away at the beginning. I do start out with a joke at the beginning that gets people laughing. And then I ask a question or two to engage people, because no one really likes to be passively listening. So if you can get people to answer a question, like how many people are whatever, like I'll ask just kind of like a little poll kind of question, or just so I can get an idea. It wakes people up a little bit. You know, I like to do that. Just, I don't even actually plan when I'm going to do that. I just do it. Like I start talking and then I'm talking. So I'm like, hey, everybody, what are you doing? And I would rather hear other people talk than hear myself talk. So I try to get people to join in.
Well, and Rebekah, I was going to say, because I know that now most every conference has a question and answer at the end. And so you got to be prepared for that as well. So Rebekah, what are your thoughts?
So for me, and sorry if you asked me a different question, I didn't hear it because Siri thought I was talking to her. I had to turn off my phone. She's like, what do you need?
Yeah.
I don't need anything right now.
Give me a latte.
Yeah, exactly. Could you do that? Oh God, that would be amazing. I am, so Peg and I are both, if you can't tell, planners by nature. So we map out everything, you know, every detail. Where we're a little bit different and your drama probably comes in is I even think about that, down to, am I going to, ask the audience a question? Now, it's not written into my presentation. It's something that I will determine when I get into the room. And so to your first question, that if I ask a question and want to get the audience interactive is really going to have to do with the setting of the presentation. It's going to have to do with the group that I'm speaking with, how big that group is. And if there's a way that I can ask like a poll type question, everybody raise your hand, or if it makes sense to do that in that setting. So you just have
It's hard though, because you don't want to open it up too much where people start asking questions if it's not time when you want people to ask questions. I don't know how you guys are, but in a regular presentation, I do want them all at the end so it doesn't break up. If somebody asks a question, it could be something you're going to answer in a few minutes, or it can just sometimes you get a know-it-all in the audience that'll be like, well, what I do is, and then you're like, it kind of undermines your expertise at the moment. So there's a little balance when you for the conversation of, that's kind of why I think I usually do the poll kind of thing instead of like wanting people to shout out, because if you open it up, then people might do it.
Yeah.
And it did work out in the workshop that I did. Like I went in and out of questions and people really they asked when I asked them to ask, and they didn't ask at other times for the most part. But
but to your point, that's a completely different setting. A workshop, I think you need to be more interactive and getting people involved. So it's understanding what that goal of that presentation is. Is it to get your audience involved and talking and asking questions? But typically save the questions to the end, because it's going to, it can kill the entire vibe of the room too, depending on what those questions are.
A horrible question. And it's okay, I think, on question answers to say, I don't know. I'll talk to me, or let's talk offline. If you have some, like you were saying, Peg, somebody who's just wanting to hear themselves talk a little bit, is to say, hey, let's take this, after the session over, because I know some other people have some questions, and not brush them off abruptly, but kind of move them okay, next, please, that kind of way. But
Yeah.
I think sometimes people want to go up to the mic.
Yeah.
Like in the bigger rooms. I've seen that in the really big rooms, like at Social Media Marketing World, where it's like the big keynote things they've had, not this year, but the year before, or maybe a different year. They did have questions during some of the bigger keynote things or panels. And people really just were like, wanted to say the name of their blog. Like, I'm so-and-so from the so-and-so, so-and-so. And what we do at so-and-so is so-and-so. Like, it was really just, they wanted to just go up and have everybody see them. So that's hard to balance as a speaker. I mean, those people handled it fine. But
we're getting close. We could probably do part 2 on this, but I wanted to ask some questions on your visuals, because you both guys, you both do awesome visuals for your presentations. And there's a line of thought where they say, don't do hardly anything. Maybe just put a word on screen, because that will take, the attention off you, the speaker, and put it on your slides, which is funny to me because everybody's on their phones anyway, taking pictures and tweeting stuff out. But so
taking pictures of your slides.
That's right. So what do you think, what are some good tips for people who are creating graphics for their presentations? So Rebekah, let's start with you.
Oh, well, there's so many. First of all, I think is let them support your story. So don't rely on your slides to do all of the talking. You need to, Peggy talked all about this at the beginning. You need to know your topic, know what you're there to share, and let your slides support that. So I always look to my slides as, what's that one point I want to get across, or what is that one explanation I really want to shine a light on and really drive that home. And Jeff, I think you did a fantastic job with this and your slides. Your presentation totally different, than ours. And you would use that just one slide to be an exclamation point at the end of your joke, or to extend a thought, on a story that you're sharing. So don't look to your slides as your end all be all, because that's you. People are coming to see you, not your slides. Your slides should just simply be there as a way to take that thought process, that idea. They should be an extension of everything that you're talking about.
Good advice. What about you, Peg?
The ones that I make sure that I put text on, of course I agree with Rebekah on everything, but the ones that I make sure I put the text on are the ones that are kind of a resource. Like when I do the design, do it yourself design things, I'll put like the different sizes that the graphics should be. So that slide is always one of the most popular ones when we do the Art of Social, because everybody wants to grab that. Or if I'm giving resources, like I talked about different photo sites that you could go to, when I'm saying something that people will want to refer to later, I make sure that I put that in there so they know that what the website is, so they can go to it. So those slides have usually a little bit more text. I usually don't have too many. I'll either have like one slide when I'm talking about the different resources, but if it's a resource, if you're doing a tactical kind of speech, then you want to make sure that it's in there, because they'll say, it was what did you say? Was it, those are the ones where people, you think you're saying it super clearly, but maybe they were looking at their phone, or maybe you didn't enunciate enough. But the resources, the hard facts, you want to make sure you have, if you have any in your presentation, those you should have a slide so that people can grab that and keep it. And the other things are your bigger story points. So the same thing, like I try to just use an image or an idea. But I do love the way, Jeff, that you used your visuals as the punchline. That's awesome.
Well, thanks. Yeah. So cool. So we're getting to this last question, but it was a great one, and we may have touched on it before, but I want to hit it again. But it was like, okay, it was from Ella B, I think. It says, what's your best tip for overcoming nerds? Just lots of practice? Nerves. There could be nerds in your audience, but nerves.
All my friends are
All
nerds.
your friends are nerds. So, overcoming nerds. But what are some great tips that you can give to people when, because live video is the same way. I mean, we're getting this live video stage where, more and more people are wanting to get on live video, and that's nerve-wracking just as much as probably being on stage. So what are some tips that you go? And let's start with you.
If I feel like I'm talking too fast at the beginning, like I'm kind of like, okay, so I'll make note of that in my head, and I'll stop and take a breath or get a drink of water. So if you stop, it lets you breathe for a minute. The audience doesn't even know you're doing it, but you can do it, and you can feel it yourself. Like, I'm talking too fast. Like if you can just feel that you're like a little bit too excited or something.
Right.
So I've done that before. Just kind of stop and take a breath. Or like you make a joke, then you take a breath. Because if you don't, you're going to start hyperventilating, and your fast talking is going to keep going.
Yeah.
So one great thing is to watch your presentations back if you can stand to look at yourself at all and see, did I talk a little bit fast? Could I slow down a little bit? There's different things like video. Like I like to try to talk slower so people can understand what I'm saying. But on YouTube, the YouTubers all talk super fast and they don't blink, and all they do is like, they're all like in your face, and my daughter's like, talk faster, Mom. You're not excited enough. I'm like, man, that's like the first time anyone's ever told me that. I'm always like, too excited. Right. And I'm trying to do my video. I'm trying to be like, so now I'm going to talk about it. She's like, no, Mom, you need to be like, now what I'm going to tell you about is that. So it's like knowing what you're doing. If it's video, you might want to go faster. But if you're in public, I feel like you need to have a good, so people can understand you. You don't want to go too fast. So if you feel like you're, pushing it a little bit much, let yourself take a breath. Taking a breath is a good thing anytime in life if you feel a little bit stressed, right? So that's my best recommendation for that is if you feel like you're a little bit nervous, take a breath.
And I think your point too is to watch your presentations, even how hard it was. I went back and listened to mine, and I noticed at the beginning when I didn't feel nervous, but I mean, I knew I was, but I noticed I did a lot of ums and so's. And so I just did it right there. I'm going to work on it for my next presentation. And not to use it as a crutch. And that was one of the things I learned. It was horrifying to listen to again, but I think
it is hard
to become better. So
I'll tell one little secret that I do that kind of follows along those lines. So I, with my handy little iPhone, I go full run through my presentation and I record it. And then whenever I'm out, if I'm working out, walking my dogs all day, I listen to myself and I'll listen to the thing full through. And it's like air checking when I was in radio, which is what you're talking about. Actually hearing the words that you're saying. And that's where I catch so many crutches where all of a sudden I'm saying the same word over and over. And I'm like, good God, Rebekah, knock it off. But we all get hung up, in how we explain things and how you speak around a certain topic. So listening to yourself, it can, if you're not comfortable and not familiar doing it, can be really uncomfortable, but once you push past that, it can be enormously valuable. And then the second piece I would tell you is talk it out loud in the mirror. So see your actions, because, Peg, you were saying you could be talking too fast, but you could also, I feel like I'm Italian sometimes, I'm always
I talk with my hands all the time.
Yeah. And I will literally, I'm like, nail that hand down. So you'll see what the audience is going to see of what needs to be happening, what you need to be doing more of, what you shouldn't be doing. And it could be that you're making funny faces and you don't even realize it.
That on purpose though.
Yeah, but we all, we just have our mannerisms and we're not necessarily paying attention to them. So hearing yourself separately outside of watching yourself, it has been really, really helpful. I do it on every presentation.
Good.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
And both of those will help you relax.
Yeah.
Because you get more and more comfortable with how you're presenting, but also how you're hearing yourself present and what's truly coming across.
Right. Well, that is I could talk to you guys about this because you guys are just geniuses on this subject. So we could do this again, but I want to give you guys a chance to tell everybody where they can find you and find more about you. So, Peg, go first, please.
I'm Peg Fitzpatrick everywhere. My blog, on Twitter, Instagram. So look me up wherever, pegfitzpatrick.com.
Rebekah, how about you?
I feel like you need a jingle.
That's right.
.com. You see, I was going to try to make it through without singing. I always sing.
Yeah.
That's a bad thing.
We won't sing.
So, what about you, Rebekah?
Well, like Peg, I'm pretty easy to find at Rebekah Radice all across social media, RebekahRadice.com. And then, Jeff, like you said, I'm everywhere with Post Planner as well. So you can find us at Post Planner and postplanner.com.
Cool. And always, I'd love for you guys to go over to manlypinteresttips.com, click on the sidebar, and subscribe to my email community where you'll never miss out on great guests like Peg and Rebekah that we had today, because at Manly Pinterest Tips, we're always adding testosterone one pin at a time. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.